Everybody, welcome to Wealth Wednesdays. This is a new webinar series that I'm hosting in association with my podcast, Inspire to Invest, to discuss all things related to abundance, prosperity, and wealth. Sibtain Panju is one of my past guests on Inspire to Invest from actually the same time last year. And him and his wife have grown their real estate portfolio to more than seven figures in just 3 to 4 years, so they could quit their full-time jobs. I thought that was pretty amazing and a good testament to all things related to wealth and abundance. Most of their multifamily value add projects have resulted in them doubling the value of their properties, and they help to bring high quality, affordable housing to Canadians. And on a monthly basis, they also donate money to proceeds such as providing education, clean water, food, shelter to deserving families and orphans. And perhaps most importantly, they want to help support others by creating passive income through real estate. And I know you've had a lot of things going on in this past year. And like we were saying just a little bit before we started, it's been quite some time since we have connected. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to update and just kind of dive into all these different topics.
Yeah, it's been a while. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on as a guest.
Great. So for anyone that is joining us here, I know we've got a couple people and a couple people may be logging on shortly. We're going to go through some general Q&A that I've put together with Sibtain, and then we'll open up the floor for anyone that has questions as well. Sound good? Hey, Brandita, how are you?
I'm good. Is this being recorded?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah, but,
perfect.
but feel free to stay on and join with us if you're comfortable to do so.
I
And
want to rewatch it just in case I miss
yeah,
anything.
yeah, of course. Make sure everybody knows what's up. I guess in terms of questions, so we're going to start with things like mindset and abundance because I think that's really the foundation for all things when you are looking to grow wealth in your life and in your business and things like that. So, starting with limiting beliefs, what do you think are some of the most common limiting beliefs that you've experienced and you also see from other people that you've been working with? And also, what kind of things do you do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that they don't have enough time, and they're sort of stuck in their routine. They're stuck in their 9 to 5, and they might have kids at home, so they feel like that they don't have enough time. But you can always make time. So I definitely believe that's a limiting belief that sort of stops us all from progressing.
Yeah.
I think something else is people want clarity on the entire picture. Like they want to do something, but they get stuck in analysis paralysis. So they're sort of trying to see the entire picture, learn everything they can,
Yeah.
but the reality is you got to take action. And unless you take action, you can't progress. So in order for us to personally um, overcome those limiting beliefs, we sort of force ourselves to take a bias towards action.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that sometimes it's a limiting belief, and sometimes it's just not organizing your time efficiently, right? Like, I think sometimes
Exactly.
people overestimate what they can do in a certain period of time and then really underestimate on the flip side what they can do, right? But I really
Yeah.
believe kind of reverse engineering what your plan is just to kind of make sure that you are working towards those goals, because otherwise it can feel really intimidating to think, well, I want $100 million. Well, who doesn't?
Yeah.
How are you going to go about achieving that, right? So,
Exactly. And like it's a whole Pareto efficiency, right? Like 20% of your work will drive 80% of the results. So
yeah.
just making sure you do the 20% first, and then it'll be much better.
So now, since you did leave, you have your family, you've got a robust social life, and then you're also building this big portfolio. So when you were starting down this path, how did you manage your time to make sure that you didn't have those blocks?
We would block some time during the day where we would focus on real estate when we had full-time jobs as well, right? So we had full-time jobs, we were 9 to 5, but there were specific hours in the day where we would just focus on real estate. It could be during lunch. It could be like from 5 to 7, for example. And it was during COVID where we started this in 2020.
Yeah.
Um, well, the multifamily portfolio at least, and the kids' activities had stopped, which sort of helped us out quite a bit. So we had a lot more time, and that was the catalyst, right?
Another pandemic.
Yeah. Thank the pandemic.
Through
Yes.
time. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? Now, for
Yeah.
someone that
Exactly.
is watching that doesn't know a lot about your specific background, I know I gave a little bit of a bio, but maybe you can talk about how you started with the first property and then how you've now expanded it into like different things.
Yeah, sure. So we started with the sixplex. Well, we've been investing in real estate for many years, but single family or condos, things like that.
Yeah.
and they're always negative cash flow. So in 2019, we started getting some education and training on real estate investing. We joined some networks, and then in 2020, COVID hit, so that really helped us out in terms of our time. We had two boys in hockey. We were sort of on a treadmill. I take the GO train at 7 a.m., get back home at 6:30, take the kids to hockey. I would eat dinner in like 30 minutes or in the car sometimes, right? But when COVID hit, we had a lot of time. So we started spending time in different cities, like Kingston, Windsor,
Yeah.
Hamilton, things like that. And so we bought our first sixplex a few months later in close to London, Ontario. And we did the value add strategy there. We renovated the property.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, from that point, in 2020 as well, we bought our next property in Kingston, Ontario.
Now,
And
can
then
you talk
since,
about like
yeah,
that process? Because I think sometimes people would look at that and say, well, you know, I can barely afford my own house. Like how am I
right, right.
buying an apartment building? So can you talk a little bit about that process and if you engaged money from other people early on with joint ventures and how you've kind of scaled that into the bigger opportunities that you're pursuing now?
Yeah, so the first sixplex that we had, we bought it ourselves. We bought it with our own money. It was 100% owned by us. Even the 16plex, we were going to actually buy it ourselves, but then we
Yeah.
started talking to our friends that, hey, we're doing this. And people are like, hey, can we invest with you? So we said, okay, sure, you can invest with us, and the next property we'll buy it ourselves, maybe with our own money.
Yeah.
And so we started with the first one ourselves, but then every property after that, we've had partners on the property,
Yeah.
capital partners who enjoy the passive income.
Yeah, no, and I don't blame that. Now, in terms of numbers, can you walk me
Mm.
through what that looked like in terms of Windsor being one market, Kingston being another? I know that you've also done,
Right, right.
I think, out east and maybe potentially down south at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know through the organization you're with now, I see your boots on the ground and stuff like that.
Yep, yep, yep. So sorry, you want to hear about numbers in
Yeah,
these
what do those
cities?
numbers look like? So in terms of acquisition
Yeah,
costs, what kind of money you're putting in rehabbing them, and then what they're appraising at afterward, and how that
yeah.
process like just in terms of engaging investors so that you can anyone watching can really understand like what that looks like and why that can be so valuable to someone that is looking to scale on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So we haven't started, we went down to the States. We didn't start investing there yet. We feel like we can do the same thing as in Canada that we can do in the States. So we thought we'd be scaling in Canada first.
Yeah,
But in terms of the numbers, so I'll give you an example of our Kingston property, right? Our Kingston property, we bought it for 1.9 million.
yeah,
It's 16 units, and in about a year and a half or so, we were able to renovate most of those units and increase the rents on the property. And as most people know, the value of multifamily properties is based on the income. So as we drive the rents up, the income goes up quite a bit,
yeah,
and then the property value basically doubled in a few years.
yeah,
So, and then what we do is we refinance the property and we pay the investors back their cash, but the investors still own their share in the property. So they sort of uh, have that appreciation for the rest of their life.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a
Hmm.
strategy that's proven just to be so successful because people can repurpose their capital and essentially recycle it while they're continuing
Hmm.
to build. And I'm sure that some people here may understand it, but some people don't. But when you refinance a property, you're not getting taxed on that money that's coming out. So that could be original capital and then some, and you're not necessarily seeing any of those capital gains taxes because there haven't been any sales happening.
Exactly, exactly.
Now, in terms of taking action, for someone that's just newly started out, obviously your experience is a little bit more real estate focused, but when you think of wealth as a whole, what would
Right.
you give in terms of a piece of advice for someone that is just starting out on this journey?
Yeah, I think the first thing is try and surround yourself with people who are already doing what you want to do.
Yeah,
So if you want to do short-term rentals, then try and find people that are doing it, and maybe even partner up with them on a deal or two, right? Like you can be a small partner,
yeah,
and you'll learn a lot along the way.
yeah,
Like one of my favorite things to tell people to do is buy a sixplex as a first property. It's perfect, like fiveplex or sixplex because it's commercial financing.
yeah.
Um,
It's not too
and
big. That is
it's not,
overwhelming.
yeah, buy a sixplex in the secondary market. You can still get them for like $800,000. So you put down $200,000 and you can purchase the property.
Yeah,
And typically, you can buy a value add property where you do some renovations.
yeah,
I have friends calling me saying, "Hey, I found a property in Sault Ste. Marie. How does this property look? And I'm always saying, like, buy the first property, maybe within a couple hours away from where you are.
Yeah,
You can go visit the property. You can learn. You can see you can meet the contractors. You can meet the property managers, things like that.
yeah.
And then as you scale up, you can always have a property that's further away, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think it takes time to get there, right? I mean, I had Adriana from Ace Properties on my podcast a little while back, and she
Yeah,
was talking about how they had some vacancy issues with their property managers. And as soon as they took it in-house and Ben moved there and started to take on that management, they're pretty much at like no vacancies whatsoever, right? So I
exactly.
find that
Yep, yep.
ironic because property managers actually make money as a percentage of the rent coming in. So you think that they would want to see full occupancy, but
Yeah,
at
yep,
the
yep.
same time, like they were able to kind of create a different strategy that worked for them by one of them being able to be on the ground. So I guess it just depends on where you're comfortable starting.
Yeah,
Um,
or like, but I just want to add that property managers absolutely can make or break your business.
yeah,
And so, for example, we actually use Ben in one of our properties, and
yeah,
he's great. So if you find the right property manager,
yeah,
it's almost like you're there yourself, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can understand. Like, I haven't worked on that scale, but even when I had an issue
Hmm.
at my property in Edmonton, it took 3 months for the property manager to go in. And then the
Right.
meantime, the electricity was just blowing through the roof. Like, it went from 300 to 800 to 1100 to 1500. It's like,
Wow,
what
that's
are they
crazy.
doing lighting up the whole block? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's a bit much.
Well,
Yeah.
it was just a giant space heater in the garage because it gets so cold there in the wintertime. They didn't want their comeback to
Mm,
start, but like it was literally just sucking up that much
wow.
electricity. So I knew something was wrong, but it took that long for them to go in and spot check and find out what the issue was. So
Exactly.
obviously the tenants paid back that cost, but it was still frustrating for me because I'm like, when are you going? So it's just one thing to consider. You
Yeah.
talked about, when we're talking about funding these projects, I was on a call recently with a lawyer and he was talking about how there's been issues with properties closing if the lawyers find out that it's a joint venture. So I'm just
Hmm.
curious to know if you've ever heard any feedback like that, because it's obviously a very popular strategy where you've got the working partner
Right,
and
right,
you've got
right,
the money partner who maybe is the one qualifying or putting up the capital. Have you heard
right.
any instances like that? Because that was the first time I've
Yeah.
ever heard about a property not closing because of the lawyers understanding the nature of that relationship. So,
Yeah, so we're always very, very open with the banks. But what we do typically is we have everybody on title on the corporation.
yeah,
We don't do the joint ventures on like on a side agreement. So
yeah,
if we have three investors on the property, they all own shares in the corporation.
okay,
But I haven't even heard about this. But I can see where the banks are coming from because if they have a lot of investors that may not have the capital strength, there could be some side deals in the background which the banks don't like, right? So we're
yeah,
normally upfront with the banks and
okay.
the
Yeah, it's just
lenders.
that was the first time I'd ever heard of
Yeah,
it on a call I had maybe a month ago, and I was like, oh, well, that was always it was always OPM. Everyone always talks about other people's money and why that's such a popular strategy. So it was news to me.
yeah, interesting.
In terms of mistakes, so I mean, we're both involved in pretty significant communities where people are doing a lot of great things, and then we've
Mhm.
also seen a lot of things been done very wrong.
Right.
So, with that being said, what would you say are some of the common mistakes that some people may run into when they're starting out, or, especially as they are starting to scale?
Yeah, I think what I've seen in the past couple of years is people take too much leverage on sometimes, right? So they might take like promissory notes, things like that with high interest rates, or they might take private lending when they're starting off. So they might be buying a property worth, let's say, $2 million, right? And they're like, hey, I'm going to renovate this thing. It's going to be worth 3 million, but in the short term, I'm going to take this loan for 1.8 million, but it's a private loan, so it's going to be at like 12% interest rates. If if that the renovation takes longer, you're now paying 12% interest on $1.8 million, right?
Yeah.
And that's north of $200,000 roughly, right? So on an annual basis. So now you're paying to the renovation cost plus an extra $600,000 over 3 years,
Yeah.
and now you're underwater, right? So all that effort you're putting in, you're going to lose money. So one of the strategies that we do is we always try and get a decent interest rate, although it might be a fixed loan. Like we bought a property in Fredericton. and we were going conventional financing, and we weren't getting a good rate, so we went with CMHC,
Yeah.
and we're locked in for 5 years, but we're only paying 4.5%, right? So you de-risk the whole investment when your interest rates are lower,
Yeah.
right?
No, 100%. I think that's one thing I think I'm surprised by when, people are getting ripped apart by these rising interest rates. And I mean, I guess it depends on what their terms are like and stuff like that, but I often wondered why
Mhm.
they didn't lock in, after the first couple interest rates increases,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
that's true. That's
think,
true.
okay,
Yeah,
well, we're
yeah,
starting to see these things, but usually variable, you can flip it to fixed at any
yeah.
point in time. So I'm
Usually, yeah.
thinking if it's something that you possibly could be going in a little higher. I mean, no one expected that escalation to happen so high and so quickly, but I just wondered sometimes with people that have run into issues why they didn't
Yeah,
those
so what
numbers.
yeah, so what's also interesting is we were, we did a lot of deals in 2020, 2021, when the rates were low.
Yeah,
And the reality is the banks and the brokers make a lot more money when when you kind of renew your mortgage, right? Or you're trying to look for another mortgage.
yeah,
So the advice from everybody was don't lock it in because it's better to go variable. It's better to, 9 times out of 10, better to go variable.
yeah. And
And
for
then
15 years it was.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
no, I
That's
can
right.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
In terms of things like risks, what would you say is a calculated risk that you've taken that you felt like really significantly paid off?
Yeah, so I'll go back to that Kingston property because it was one of our first multifamily properties,
Yeah,
and we found out about that deal like 3 hours before the offers were due. And so, like, luckily, we had crunched a lot of numbers by that time. We had run through a lot of walked through a lot of properties.
yeah,
We sort of knew what these properties were all about. And so, what we had to do was crunch the numbers and put the offer in within a couple of hours. And we couldn't even drive there because we're about 2.5 hours from Kingston. So we saw everything by video. We asked all the questions we wanted to ask,
yeah.
and we put the offer in at $400,000 over asking price. So about 20% over the asking price. And we knew that the building could support that because we had recently offered on a building in Niagara Falls, which was 2.7 million, 16 units. So we thought, okay, we can definitely offer 1.9 million on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
So we did that. We got the property like sight unseen within a couple hours, running the numbers, and yeah, that property paid out. Like today, it's worth $4 million. We just recently refinanced it again for the second time.
Wow. And what year so I guess you bought that 2021?
We bought it at the end of 2020, October 2020.
Okay, so it's basically doubled
Yeah,
in 4.5 to 5 years.
correct. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's
Well,
amazing.
we also spent some money on renovations, but still, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then how much would a property like that cash flow at this point? Because obviously part of it is that you want to refinance and pull out that equity, but you also want to make sure like you're still cash flow positive after you pull that money out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so from a cash flow basis, it might have like in terms of dollars, like 30, $40,000 of cash flow.
Okay.
But after paying down the mortgage, you have mortgage pay down there,
Yeah.
and then you have the passive appreciation as the rents go up slowly, right? So
Yeah. And
yeah.
would you have had something like that in a CMHC mortgage?
Yeah, so this last one we did CMHC.
Yeah.
The first refi was not CMHC on that property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you run into any issues? Like, I feel like some of the things that I keep hearing about from different larger investors, like a big challenge is just CMHC changing the rules all the time, right? So initially
Yeah.
it was based on like you had to have one of their approved lenders. Then now there's different points in place, whether it's for energy
Mhm.
efficiency or if it's for affordable housing. And now they're changing it where instead of 95/5, it's 75/25. And there's all
Yeah.
these different things that are happening, right? So I'm just wondering what
Yeah.
your thoughts are on, just trying to plan so conservatively that if there are unexpected changes like that, that you're able to roll with it.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Like CMHC's changed quite a bit, and we know some colleagues, some friends who invest, and they have had issues with that, with all the rule changes.
Yeah,
We've been lucky, they haven't affected us yet. We are looking at a development on one of our pieces of land right now, and this rule just came down maybe a couple of months ago now, where it's 75/25
yeah,
if you want to build, because CMHC is being more conservative on land development.
yeah,
And we were running all our performers like a few weeks before that at 90% loan to cost rather, right? And now we're like, now we talk to some of our brokers and lenders who are very close to CMHC, and they said, listen, like do the underwriting at 75. You
Yeah.
might be able to get 85 because of your experience, because of your knowledge, because of your portfolio.
Yeah.
But so we're underwriting everything conservatively, which we always try and do.
Hmm.
But you're right. You got to expect in real estate in general, you got to expect the unexpected. You're going to get a call one day saying, "Hey, there's a flood in your basement." You're going to get a call one day
Yeah.
saying there's an issue, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a
I mean, but
long-term
those
game.
are, I feel like, issues that you can handle. I think one thing that surprised me with CMHC is that they would
Hmm.
at least kind of allow for like a little bit of lead time to say, like, if someone's been working on building
Yeah,
an apartment, you'd say, well, if
right.
this is what you were planning for, anyone that's gotten up to this stage within 3 months,
Hmm.
they can
Hmm.
still kind of phase in based on that, right? Like, it just amazes me that the government or whoever the
Yeah.
power could be are not thinking of these ripple effects, right? Because it's really been very, very difficult. And it's something that could just, you know, blow up a company completely and all their plans if that would no longer work. So, I mean, I don't know who's listening out there, but the one thing that
Yeah,
I was just surprised that there wasn't like a phase in or phase out of
exactly.
different programs, right?
I think part of the problem is that when they do give some notice,
Yeah.
they get this huge
Lots
influx
of
of
people.
applications, right?
Yeah.
So I think one time they did give some notice for a couple of months, and I think it was a change they made in June, I remember,
Yeah.
and all these applications started pouring in, then there was
They
created
can't
this huge
accommodate
backlog,
that.
right? So it's a tough situation that they're into,
Yeah.
but they do change rules quite a bit, and it is challenge.
Now, speaking of challenges, what would you say is maybe a circumstance where you had a misstep and how did you bounce back from that setback?
Yeah, so I think this would take me to probably going back to 2008 when there was a crash in the market. We'd built up our nest egg sort of thing, so to speak. We'd invested in pre-construction, single family, condos, stock market,
Yeah.
and all that stuff just tanked overnight.
Mm.
And we had left room like, hey, if this goes down by 20%, we're still going to be okay.
Yeah.
But the properties had gone down by 30, 40, 50% in some cases, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we learned at that time not to speculate, right? So that's when we started shifting gears to more stable investments like multifamily, for example.
Yeah.
If we focused on more cash flow based investments where like if you buy an investment that's positive cash flow, you can hold it forever. Even if the market goes down, positive cash flow, you're fine.
Yeah.
So we changed our whole strategy at that point to investing in cash flow based investments.
Yeah, I think that that's really smart. And there's so much to do with timing because I've got family that lives in Florida, and that was right around the same time that my cousin actually got married. And he just
Yeah,
bought up a bunch of lots that, they dropped by 90% or something. So I think he bought them,
right.
should have been like
Exactly.
25,000. He bought them for like 5,000 a lot. So he put like four or five of them side by side and just built like a 2,200 square foot garage and a fairly big house and a pool and like all these things. But he got it for, 25,000 as opposed to like 150,000 or whatever
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
was, right? So there's
Yeah,
so many
yeah,
things that factor into that, and it's just sometimes, nobody can have a crystal ball and expect that, right? But
yeah. True, true.
that's all part of it.
Yeah.
In terms of real estate as a whole, so why do you personally think that real estate is such a powerful tool for building wealth? And again, is there anything that you think is really complementary to that? Like, or do you just 100% intend to stick with real estate until the very end?
That's a good question. So, I personally love real estate. Like if you look back, even like in history, like real estate has been doubling every 10 years, pretty much.
Yeah,
Um, so with real estate, you can use leverage. It's one of the few investments you can use leverage safely. Like if you use leverage in the stock market, you can get burned pretty fast. There's one crash and you're out, right?
yeah,
With real estate, especially multifamily real estate, you can use leverage, put down 25%, put down 20%,
yeah,
and even if the property goes up 20% over the next 5 years, you've doubled your money because you've only put down 20%.
yeah,
So that's one of the reasons I love real estate. Also, I mean, there's different strategies in real estate. So you can find underperforming deals. You can do a value add strategy. You can buy new properties as well, which are great because the maintenance costs a lot lower.
yeah.
You can also diversify because you can buy in different provinces, things like that. So we also do buy in different
Yeah.
provinces for that reason for the diversification effect. Like right now, Ontario's been going down, but Alberta's been pretty hot, right?
Yeah.
So
Now, in terms of finding those opportunities, are you cold calling any apartment building owners, or are you just looking at things that are on market?
no. So what we do is we have a network of realtors that are helping us find off market deals all the time. So like every morning, I'm looking at 10 deals that are coming in, which are off market deals. Almost every day, I'm talking to a different realtor who's bringing me deals.
Yeah.
And we let them know that, hey, we're going to get back to you regardless. Like we'll tell you within 24 to 48 hours if we're interested or not.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll definitely respond to them. We'll meet them, we'll spend time with them, we build that relationship.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important, like that if you are getting information from realtors, that you actually respond to them.
Yeah.
Even if you're
Absolutely.
not interested, hey, not interested in this one, looking for something bigger, looking for something a little bit different, then
Yeah.
they'll keep you in mind. If you don't respond, they're
Yeah.
just going to be like, okay, this guy's not
Or
interested at
tire
all.
kicker. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they
exactly.
lose momentum, right? Like I can
Well,
understand,
they,
appreciate
well,
that. So.
they're busy too, and if you're not responding, they just feel like they don't see your name anywhere, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I
yeah,
can understand that. Now,
yeah.
I know we talked about in your bio just your passion for community and giving back and things like that. Can you talk about what role that plays for you just in terms of achieving true prosperity and fulfillment in your life?
Yeah, I think people say that money can't buy happiness. I think it can. When you give it away is when you're like very happy, like when you see what it can do to help other people, it actually can buy happiness, right? So, like one of the things we do is we give $10 per unit that we own per month as charity, and what that forces us to do is be grateful that we're able to do that on a monthly basis, where it reminds us that, hey, we have this ability to do this. We're very grateful. It sort of feeds our why as well, because you can sort of grow your portfolio to a point, but then what what are your longer term goals? Like what are you going to do with that extra money, right? So I think it sort of motivates us to build more, and that way we can increase that
Yeah.
monthly giving program, right?
Yeah, no, and it's nice that you can just plan that budget from the get-go, right? I mean, when I used to have my
Exactly.
we would plan this event for Peter Gilligan because he's the owner of Matty Me Homes, and he's
Hmm.
just got so much money he gives away like tens of millions at a time. So
Yeah, wow.
we ran an event to say thank you, as a part of a PR event for a $10 million donation to St. Joseph's Health Center, which is where he was born. But he's also given 50 million to sick kids. He's given 40 million to other hospitals because health is really a big passion for him. But
That's
imagine
great.
like, to grow a business so big that you're literally writing checks for $10 million or more at a time.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
exactly.
pretty incredible. And
Totally.
going back and giving your younger self advice,
Hmm.
what would you tell yourself when it comes to something like money mindset or investing, knowing what
Yeah.
you do now?
Um, I, I think I would say like make sure you do something which you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, then you'll be good at it and you'll have a passion for it.
Yeah,
In terms of the money side of things, I would definitely say like, hey, it's not time. It can be timing the market, but it's really time in the market, because things go up and down, but long term real estate's always gone up.
yeah.
So definitely invest early. My kids are looking for deals right now as well. Like they're sort of learning the business as well, because
How old are they?
18 and 15 now.
They're gonna say
And
eight. Go.
no, but you know what? My 15-year-old, he's been working with us for a few years now, and he was like 12, right? So
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah,
Is there anything you do with them? Like, obviously, they've seen you and Ancia grow your portfolio, but I had talked to someone recently that talked about adding your children, for example, to your credit cards to build up their credit. Are there any things like that you do with your family just to make sure that they have like that stronger foundation as they do start to go out and go off into the world?
yeah. So my one son just turned 18 right now, so he's getting a credit card. They've had bank accounts for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think as long as they have a credit card when they're 18, they start spending some money, paying it back on time. I think their
yeah.
credit's going to be fine from that standpoint. Yeah, I'm not doing too much yet, but one of my kids is he has his own stock market account. He's investing in the stock market. He was helping me manage my portfolio, part of my portfolio,
Yeah.
stock portfolio, over the past couple of years. He was learning about stocks as well. He goes to Guelph, so he's part of their student investment council as well, where he's sounds like it feels like he's spending more time with that council than he is at school.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
But that's amazing. At least you're giving them that backbone.
yeah,
The
yeah,
one that I
totally.
spoke to was a mortgage broker in California. So she talked about that. I think when your kids are 12 or 15, that you can add them. Like they don't necessarily even have their own credit card. You just add them to yours and it builds up their credit from like a very
Oh,
young age.
interesting. Okay, okay,
So
okay.
it's just a way to kind of help them improve their credit score and things like that. And then within the Wealth Club, we have a couple of people that do really interesting presentations on crypto. So if he has an interest in things like stock, then
Mm,
that could be something that they could find fascinating as well.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
So I figure now we're
Exactly.
just going to open up the floor. So Brandita and Babette, if you have any questions at all, like the floor is yours.
I think one of my questions is any advice on like finding the right partner? Because like in a lot of these businesses, it is working with other people. So just like any
Yeah, yeah.
suggestions, like family, not family.
So do you want to be the capital partner or the working partner?
um, what's the difference? I didn't even know there was a difference.
Yeah, so the capital partner typically, I mean, you don't have to be. You can be both. Like you can bring in some capital and be the working partner as well. But typically, what happens is there are people who are too busy and don't have the real estate expertise. So what they do typically is they bring in the capital, and then there are people who are, maybe full time or most of the time real estate investors, and they'll be the working partner, and they might even put in some capital as well. And so, in terms of being the working partner, in terms of partnership in general, you want to work with people you like, know, and trust. We're very careful who we partner with. We make sure we spend enough time with them. Typically, people that we partner with, we've known for years. We've known them in different settings. We know people that know them as well. We've sometimes we've traveled together. So yeah, definitely spend a lot of time picking the right partners. And what people also do is they feel like they have to have multiple partners and try and grow things. But in reality, like if you have a few good partners or even one or two partners, you can kind of scale together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think that there's a lot just that you can just never ask too many questions. Like I think there's been a lot of distrust in our community in the last little while, and people were comfortable based on referrals or what they saw from an optics perspective based on the size of someone's portfolio, but they didn't really know the true financial health of what was going on in those companies. So even things like asking about the financial health and seeing things like their financials and their other corporations and how everything is connected and understanding truly like what that web of corporations might look like because more often than not people will register a corporation for each property, right? So if they have a fairly large portfolio, you want to see what that whole picture looks like, even if you're just a partner on one project or if you're joint venturing one to one with that person, just so you can understand what everything looks like as a whole. There's also things like a court case search tool that you can actually look up and see if they have ever had any past claims. Again, you may think you know someone well, and then you might be like, oh, well, they have had sporadic claims for the last 10 years. Like that could obviously be a big red flag. So there's different things that you can do. And I just think that you can never ask too many questions.
Thank you. That's a good idea. I didn't even know about that stuff. So it's true. You want to be thorough with whoever you're investing with.
Yeah, and also get separate legal counsel, right? Like I think sometimes strategically people think, well, I'll save money, we'll have the same lawyer, but you're kind of representing different interests and stuff like that. And when you are starting out, sometimes even having that second opinion, like I had a lawyer look some things over going back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but then I learned from other lawyers later, like that never should have even happened the way it did. So, even though that could cost a little bit more money up front, it could save you money in the long run. So it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion, at least when you're starting out and getting your feet wet the first time you're seeing limited partnership agreement or joint venture agreement or something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. I think one common belief system is that you need money to make money.
Yeah.
So I think there is some truth in that, right?
Yeah. Well,
Like
you
to
need money. It
invest,
doesn't have to be your money, right?
right? Okay, okay. So
Yeah,
then that's a strategy, like use someone else's money to
absolutely.
invest to make yourself money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like most people who are scaling their portfolios, including like funds, including like almost everybody that I know, is using investors' money,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because with real estate, you will cap out with your own money at some point. So if you're buying these buildings, which are 100 units, for example,
Yeah.
you're definitely going to be using other people's money, right? So all with most of our properties, we have partners, investors on them, right?
Yeah.
We only
Okay.
have a few that's just us.
Yeah, and I think it's all about kind of setting it up. Like you don't want to bite off more than you can chew if it's your first time, but working
Right.
with a lawyer that can set up your contracts appropriately, potentially working with a securities lawyer. Like it really just depends on the size of the asset that you're acquiring, how much money you have to raise, or how many investors you have to engage. I think, Sib, you can correct me, but I think for some of those acquisitions, for example, I think it was like if you have over 50 investors, then you have to involve an exempt market dealer. So there are just certain things from a legal standpoint and compliance. You want to make sure that you understand what that looks like. It's one thing to go in and buy, property it's 500,000 or a million, but like if you're bringing on serious capital, then you just want to make
Right.
sure you're not going to run into any like legal issues down the road.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much raise money from accredited investors, friends, family, close business associates.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you need to go through an exempt market dealer. And friends and family, like friends meaning they have to be your true friends, not somebody you just met, you know, three
Right.
months 3 months ago, right? You have to know sort of their dog's name and things like that.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know, like there's different categories. So there's like an eligible investor and then there's accredited. And there's certain values that you need to have from a standpoint of regular income as well as your overall net asset
Mhm.
value. So there's maybe Sibi, you can talk a little bit more about that, but there's again different categories that you would look at in terms of what would be acceptable to take money from. And the reality is you just don't want to take every penny somebody has, and then if something goes wrong, like
Right.
they lose everything, right? So there are certain protections that are in place from a legal standpoint to make sure that companies don't take advantage of people in that regard.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have another question.
Yeah, go
So
for
if
it.
you wanted to start out and you wanted to, invest in your first real estate property, what would you
Mhm.
suggest?
So what
Like,
what I
would it
would,
be,
yeah,
mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
Is
Yeah,
it
go
like a
ahead, sorry.
single family home, maybe a condo, just rent it out?
Not
I
a
don't know.
Yeah.
condo.
So yeah, so if it's your first property, what I would do is almost do what I did, is buy like a 5 or 6 unit property that is underperforming, that has upside in the rents, um, and buy it in like a secondary market, for example, where the prices are a lot lower. So the reason I say get at least a 5 unit property is because the financing for that property is based on the income for the property. It's not based on your personal income.
Okay.
It's a different financing strategy. You can also qualify if it's 5 units or up. You can do CMHC financing as well. So you have different more options in the financing side of it. And at long term, when the rents go up, the property value is based on the rents and the income. Whereas if you buy like single family or a condo, the value is based on what the next door comparable sold for. It's not based on the rents or the income. So for all those reasons, I would recommend at like minimum 5 units, and then go from there, scale up from there from that point.
Okay,
And I think
thank you.
the other thing to consider, I know that you started in Ontario and everyone's got different opinions. I think a couple challenges specifically in Ontario could be for one, affordability. So
Right.
finding things that, can cash flow depending on where exactly you're looking. And then the other thing is like the LTB. So just be prepared for the fact that we're not in a landlord friendly province. So sometimes people may be
Yeah.
more attracted to going a little bit further away just to make sure that they've got more control over their asset if they do run into any non-payment events.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You want to jump in again, Bernita?
Oh no, I'm good. I just came back. My
Right.
son was kind of, I was just catching the last part.
All right, no worries. Is there anything that you wanted to add in closing, Sid?
No, I just wanted to say, I still think real estate, like there's fear in the market right now, which is the exact time you want to get in. The properties you have time to analyze the properties, you have time to offer on the property. There's a little bit of room to negotiate the properties. The interest rates have come down enough that the properties are cash flowing. So I think it's a good time to take action, but definitely walk through a lot of properties, crunch a lot of numbers, and then make your first offer based on that.
Yeah.
And the last piece of advice would be to get a good power team. So make sure you're talking to people who are investing and saying, hey, who's a good realtor? Who's a good property manager? Who's a good appraiser, right? So you have to build out your power team in order to be successful in investing. It's a team sport. Like you have to leverage your team for everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks to both of you for joining us for tonight. We're going to be having a recording of this available if you ever want to go back and watch it again. And we also live streamed it over YouTube, so it'll be available there as well. But thank you for your time tonight, Sib. I think you've got so much wisdom from everything that you've learned in the last 5 years, and I think it's really helpful for anyone that's going to be watching.
Thank you. It was great being here. Thank you.
The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.